Welcome to Talk Data to Me with myself, Craig Stewart from Dalebrook Media. I've had a good run of these. I think this is the third or fourth one I've done in the last week. So look out for the release of all these episodes coming out of next week. So I'm actually going to be in Turkey on holiday, which is a well-deserved break after a while. So I'll kind of drip feed these out. Big smile there from Claire Tolmay, good friend of myself, the show, all that sort of thing. Claire, so great to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And I'm very jealous of you going to Turkey. Definitely on my bucket list. So yeah, we'll have to have a catch up afterwards. So I can hear all about it.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to it. First extended trip without the kids. So I think that's going to kind of add to the whole sort of relaxation factor. But apparently Turkey's hot on everybody's list at the moment, super busy, lots of South Africans going there. So yeah, I'll definitely report back.
Oh, definitely. You have to. It's absolutely a stunning country. I mean, such a diverse, culture. So definitely have to give me some feedback when you get back.
Absolutely. Claire, it's been a while since we caught up. You've had a few changes. And currently the global head of analytics looking after gaming at Derivco. Really exciting. Maybe you can just share a little bit about who Derivco is and the world of gaming and where you fit in and some of the cool things that you've been up to since joining.
Well, Derivco is really not new to the gaming world. Been around for 20 odd years in the gaming sector, has really grown over the last few years within the sector, very focused around data as at the heart of its gaming, and the focus with regards to including data, I think right from the start. So they were in the early days of data in bringing gaming and data together, but I think they've really moved forward in bringing the two worlds together in an amazing way. And I've been privileged enough to become part of that journey. So Derivco really focused around gaming across the sectors across the world in multiple countries, everywhere from the US to Europe, to some Asian countries, really diverse in the types of games that they also produce, and very, very focused around building some studios as well and have their own studios that produce these games. And at the heart of it as well, mathematical modeling is really key. So yeah, very, very different world to the data world that we're used to in terms of focusing on bringing data into the actual heart of the product. And I think that's really, really exciting place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously analytics and mathematical sort of bent on things and stats has always been in the gaming world, for early days of casinos and things like that. Is this used a lot more around the user experience as well, not just obviously to drive the performance of the business?
Yeah. So absolutely. I think, what is really, really key around gaming nowadays is it's really seen as a form of entertainment. And I think compared to previous times where people really were into gaming, perhaps in the early days, was really a simplified form of games and dealing with basic probability, it has become really amazing form of entertainment. So absolutely, user experience is very, very integral. It is monitored very, very closely in terms of how do our users interact with our games? How do they perceive those games? Are we seeing improved spins per play? Are we understanding how the players are experiencing that and understanding the game as well? So really from a marketing and understanding as well, a lot is focused around that too, from the perspective of really understanding our players too. So I think very, very unique in that it has changed from the traditional gambling focus to a more entertainment-based focus. And how can we ensure that we enable that entertainment through the data that we're collecting?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll come back into the gaming stuff a bit later, but what I wanted to kind of go through this morning is really, I guess, your journey through data analytics. So we met a good few years ago, I think even pre-COVID, which is crazy. Yes. It seems like a decade ago now, actually, when you were at Nestle, and kind of just going through the roles that you did. I mean, you sort of just got into data science when we first met, but before that, it wasn't really a key area of yours. So you've had this sort of brilliant trajectory and growth through data analytics. And I think for anybody who's listening to this that's maybe starting out or maybe isn't in data but has an interest in it, really good to understand how you've kind of driven yourself to do that. And I think maybe that one of the giveaways is the banner on your LinkedIn profile says "Do something great," which I thought was awesome.
Yes.
And maybe that's just part of it. That's just who you are. So yeah, talk us through how you've kind of gone from looking after nutrition at Nestle to being the global head of analytics for gaming at Derivco.
So I think data has always been a passion of mine. I was consistently in research for many, many years and was focused on research a lot. So at the heart of research, as you know, is data. I think we're in the early days, when we were in the early days of data, we didn't really understand the implications that data could have on business. And being in the research arena, I consistently was hounding business with regards to, can we not use data more effectively? There's techniques are there, just the basic techniques. Initially, I was saying things, some simple techniques like multiple regression. How can we truly understand what are some of the correlations between some of the things that we're seeing in business? And so I think that was where my passion for data started, was the realization that what I was utilizing in research could actually be utilized within business as well. I think maybe I was a little ahead of my time in that way, and that's that people were not really getting what I was talking about. So I had to also learn in terms of the journey of, I think that's that thing that we all deal with as data professionals, is actually getting our story across.
Yeah.
And being able to enable that story. So I had to learn to enable that story. And that the way that I did that was making sure that I realized there were certain projects within the business that I could possibly get involved in and bring that data element into it. So that really was the initial start. It was as simple as initially in CRM, when I was involved in a CRM solution, bringing in the data from not only the CRM solution, but looking at things like our sales and marketing data and correlating those and starting to give some reporting and making the business realize there is value in understanding this. So absolutely, I think it's a bit of a self-starter journey for anyone that wants to go into data, especially in a business that I think is still in the early stages and younger level of maturity, is to make them realize that you actually have value in doing this. And so it's about you getting those projects up and running. It's about you moving the needle in terms of that. And it's about you telling the right story. And I think this is really, really key, is find your story to tell, because it really does not matter if you are giving amazing reports and amazing insights. If you're not telling the story correctly, you are not going to get that across. So I think for me was really starting that story and then being given that opportunity ultimately with Nestle to start working into the foray of building this data team for Nestle. So absolutely was very lucky in getting that opportunity, but then moving through that, I think, and growing within data and realizing that I had so much to learn. But I also had the benefits of my previous experience. And I think this cannot be underutilized in terms of what you utilize your previous experience for. Some of the key things that I always say my previous experience allowed me was, I worked a lot in the business.
Yeah.
I understood the business. I understand the frustrations of individuals in the business. And I think that's really key is, we often say that as data professionals, there's that major gap between us in terms of the bridge that we always talk about between the business and ourselves. Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to understand that. So I came in from a perspective of being the business person who had those frustrations. And now I wanted to find the solutions and being able to speak the business speak. So absolutely, I think for anyone that is in the business, don't underestimate the value of what you have as experience already, because it gives you an insight that somebody who's brand new coming into data from university or from anywhere else that doesn't have that experience does not have that insight, and they have to work a little bit backwards in that way too. So it's there's always a benefit towards that. So I really utilize that for my experience to help me tell the stories that the people wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Let them hear what they needed to hear and showcase what we could do with regards to the data. And I think that has been throughout. Those soft skills that I developed has been something that has really enabled me to move in their sector while still learning. And then the second thing that I always say is align yourselves with the experts.
Yeah.
Align yourselves with those amazing people. Get yourself a mentor. And I was very lucky. I got surrounded by amazing mentors and got surrounded by really, really clever people in the data arena that I could leverage off and learn from. And I'm still doing it. I still find, even within my current team, I have an amazing team and amazing insights from that team that can teach me things that I did not know. So I think being humble and realizing that you never know everything,
Yeah.
and aligning yourselves to the people that are able to teach you about that is really, really key. And I think those are the two things that have helped me get where I need to go, is firstly, leveraging what I already had in terms of the skill sets. And then secondly, realizing that I don't know everything and finding the people that can help me learn.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. And I think that's such a great approach, because I think sometimes people get a bit sort of single-minded and, I'm going to just do this on my own. I think really, and there's so many people out there that are willing to be mentors and help other people. And especially because I think the way that you've done it, and I think anybody, as I said, listen to this, that is maybe not in a pure data role at the moment, but is really keen to get into that, is about understanding the business, but then also about, I guess, really driving yourself forward, telling the stories. But I think maybe some people will be a little bit hesitant because they don't think they have the data skills. And they've got the business skills, they understand it, their aptitude for it is great, they've got that context of business already.
Yeah.
How do people go about maybe upskilling themselves from a data perspective? Because I think sometimes it can be very scary, right? It's a huge sort of
No,
spectrum.
it's a huge leap. Yeah.
Yeah, there's data governance and could be AI and deep learning, and people kind of go, oh, I don't know if I could do this, I'm passionate. Any advice on where people should maybe start who are not pure data professionals, but kind of work with it to a degree? I mean, everybody kind of works with data and there's insights if you're using Excel. Where would you start? Like, where would you tell yourself if you went back X number of years, say, Claire, this is a good spot to begin?
I always say, start with the basics. So absolutely, you mentioned Excel. I always speak to everyone. I always say, you know what, the best analytics tool that you can start with is Excel. And I know this is, all of us as data professionals, when we later down the line hate Excel,
Yes,
but it is such an
conferences where everybody rolls their eyes, right?
exactly. But it is such an amazing tool to start some of that understanding. And I think it's really key for you to understand some of the statistical concepts that you're going to be working with. And for Excel, what is really great about Excel and the information that's out there with regards to Excel is it explains these concepts really, really well. So the documentation that's out there is really easy. So if you're looking at any of the calculations and you're looking at things such as, very simple terms, multiple regression, correlation, these are all actually explained in the Excel documentation. So it's really a nice place to start. Start with the simple. I always say, don't, keep it simple, stupid. Don't go too complex initially. Yeah. And then always move forward in terms of, once you've understood those basics, is to start moving forward into potentially other languages. And this is where people often have this debate around which language must I start with first. Yeah. And I think it doesn't matter, to be honest. Find the language that you're going to be most comfortable with to start. R, Python, whatever you want to work with. But I think it's really key that you start with one of them. Just start. And it doesn't have to be anything complex. It can be simple Udemy courses. It can be anything from the start. But start doing that and start working with data, utilizing those tools.
Yeah.
And then you can always move on to other tools. Start understanding what tools your business is using. Or start understanding what tools most other businesses are using. Start reading. And this is something that I can not express more, is start reading some of the journals and the articles that you're seeing around this topic, so that you can understand what are the trends and hitch onto those trends. Because the thing about this industry is the trends go very quickly. So it's about you learning quickly, hitching on quickly, and then hitching off if you need to and move on to another tool or another opportunity. So I think that's really key for me. Is it doesn't mean you have to go and do a master's. It doesn't mean you have to go and do another degree. You can do these smaller courses. You can learn very quickly. And the advantage of being embedded in a business already is that you can already see the applications and potential applications of these tools. Yeah. So start utilizing them and keep it very simple initially, because also you don't want to overcomplicate things, because the business themselves as well, if you start speaking about these things and it's really complicated tools and complicated concepts, they're not going to understand it either. Mm-hmm. So you're learning essentially together. And that's the thing, is just keep it really simple and start with the simple tools and move to more complex techniques and tools later down the line.
Yeah. Okay, let's kind of talk about then people that don't have the aptitude for the coding, learning languages or sort of statistical models, all that sort of thing. Me being one of those, I started learning Java at Fonsale and Pritchard, which I think a lot of South African IT people will be aware of.
Yeah.
The HTML stuff, and as soon as I got into any sort of really technical Java, my brain said, no, this is not how you operate. Do something a bit more on the creative side. But in terms of like more the frameworks, like data governance, data quality, you talk about storytelling. Obviously, UX is a big part of what it is that your team does. What are some of the, I guess, the, hesitant to say the non-technical roles, or sort of, I guess, the non-programming roles that people could go into and still be involved in data within their organizations? Because it's not just about, coming up with the next machine learning model.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I always say is that's the fun stuff that people tend to see, the fun stuff. Is it's the stuff that people see on the news that the journalists talk about. And everybody forgets about the base work. And I think the base work is so important. And the base work, like you said, is not necessarily the technical stuff.
Yeah.
It is things like data governance, data compliance, understanding these things. So compliance is a key aspect at the moment for us, especially if you're dealing with customers or consumers. So think about how you can possibly move into those arenas as well is absolutely integral. And I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger down the line because of the focus on privacy and compliance at the moment. So absolutely, those are opportunities. Data governance as well is a really, really fascinating field, and is not just a field that sits within one little scope. It is so diverse in its opportunities as well. Data governance is definitely somewhere. And then I often say, people think about data analytics as just the analytics. But there is an amazing opportunity, and I think this is a gap that we have in the market, is for UX within analytics. UX analysts are a new sort of its term at the moment, but I think there is such an importance with regards to those roles. This is really the creative part. This is the storytelling.
Yeah.
This is how do we actually tell those stories to our consumers? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to put it in a beautiful package with regards to some sort of advanced Python package or an advanced R package that you have to utilize to do these things. These are actually more creative ways. You could be the person that tells the relevant analyst how they actually need to display their data so that it will allow for easier storytelling. So there are so many opportunities within the data arena that I think will deal with the more creative personalities, that will deal with the more legal or compliance personalities, that deal with the business aspect in terms of governance. There is so many opportunities out there. You just got to dive. And I think what's so exciting about this world is there are opportunities that we've not even thought of.
Yeah, agreed.
So who's to say you can't be the mover and shaker that does something different in this arena? So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to become the analyst or the data scientist or the data engineer. You can do a whole host of other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, good stuff there. I mean, I think that's quite inspirational for myself as well, and just other people listening, is that there is this perceived skills gap. There's this sort of, I guess, fear, whether it be rational or irrational, that the AI will take our jobs. I mean, that's been a big thing for a while, but and obviously automation. But I think it is about speaking within your own business and then sort of looking further afield, is to kind of reskill and kind of reshape yourself, because so many skills are going to be involved in data analytics just by default, right? Because I think that's just how, I mean, we speak to a lot of companies, you and I, through conferences and things like that. So many more companies are becoming data driven. The maturity curve is kind of really steep at the moment. So I think whatever organization someone's in, you're likely to be in a fairly data driven organization. So there's a place for you somewhere within that environment where you can really grow yourself and obviously add value to the company as well.
Absolutely. And I think, that's one of the things I read literally this weekend was around AI. And AI is really, I always say, is that end game for any data-driven organization. But is what absolutely, I think what we're underestimating is the integration of data, as you said, into business. The estimation apparently by 2030 is that 87% of all businesses will actually be utilizing AI in some way or another. That is just around the corner. That is 8 years in the making.
Amazing, yeah.
And that is the end game. You know, the AI, I think, is the end game for all of us in the data world. We always go, yeah, we want to go towards AI-driven organizations.
Yeah.
But the fact that 87% of organizations globally will have some element of AI in their organization within 8 years attests to how fast-paced this arena is, and how opportunities are going to just be flying off the shelf in terms of opportunities for individuals. So I think, yes, we have to also change our mindset around what data encompasses, and just go out there and grab these opportunities and find new opportunities ultimately as well.
Yeah. Do you think the success of something like that being, you know, AI driven, or I think an AI enabled organization, is kind of demonstrated by the fact that you almost don't know that it's there? It's something that is just so integral into the fabric of the business, the operations of the business, the structures, processes, people of the business, that, you know, you don't even know it's there, but it just helps improve what it is that you're already doing.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, AI for me, one of my favorite definitions of AI is it builds intelligence that is human intelligence into ordinary operations.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what you're saying, is things that we normally would do or have done are being done by our computers and by machines.
Yeah.
And it's become so seamless that we don't even realize it. You know, it's absolutely, that's the true definition of a true successful AI-driven organization, is it becomes so seamless that we don't even realize it's happening. And I think that's exactly where we are at the moment, is we're starting to have AI come into our world so seamlessly that we're not realizing that it's actually happening, which is exciting, but it's also, for somebody who is actually in the data arena and we have to manage this, it becomes so important for us to be able to realize what we're going to need in terms of support for those systems as well, because no system runs by itself. No system is completely automated or alone in its diversity. So yeah, that means there are more opportunities. It just simply means there are more opportunities. And our world is going to look a little different every single year. And 8 years from now, we're going to look back and go, I cannot believe it's the same organization. That is the reality of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to change direction slightly, just from something that you were talking about earlier in terms of the roles like compliance, legal, and all that sort of thing. It just kind of sparked something, and feel free to kind of not go into too much detail or go into the detail that you can. But a big thing, especially around AI and data usage, is data privacy and ethics. Obviously, we see it from a banking perspective, a retail perspective. Now, one would assume from a gaming perspective, you know, there's really got to be some fairly strong controls and ethics around how you're using data and pushing people, because it is gaming at the end of the day.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? How do you use it and kind of make sure that you've got the performance elements of the business, but there's also all the ethics. There's the human side, and realizing that your customers are humans at the end of the day, and you've got to use their data and drive them ethically.
It's absolutely. And I think this is one of our passions, is responsible gambling. You know, I think we have to be honest that we are in an arena that allows for potential misuse of data. As you said, you're pushing people, it's ultimately gambling, you know, and you don't want to push them into a place that is irresponsible and unethical. So really, I think in this arena where we really are seeing a lot of growth is how can we utilize our technologies and our data to enable responsible gambling. And I think this is really an amazing arena, because there's a lot of opportunities, if you think about it, with regards to machine learning and AI, to truly be able to allow people to be responsible with how they're managing their gambling. And I think this is really something that is even part and parcel of our strategy around how can we build an ethical framework and an ethical responsibility with regards to responsible gambling. So absolutely, I think, you know, every single organization has their own ethical dilemmas. But in this particular arena, it is really important that we focus on responsible gambling, because we don't want to be the people that create problems for individuals. We want to give the people the entertainment value, but without creating the problems that could potentially arise. So it's really a delicate balance. And I think that delicate balance with the growth of any business is going to be so integral for you to manage it better. And this is really where AI can come into its complete and utter opportunity in terms of encouraging that responsible gambling through proper monitoring and through proper machine learning that can enable the opportunities to identify potential issues and help people, not hinder people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, it's great that it's at the core of what you're doing and the strategy of the business.
Yes.
I assume it's very much top-down driven. This is how you need to be. But yeah, okay, good. That's just something that sparked, because it is that sort of area that's where you'd want to have it as a fairly strong part of the process. All right, I think, Claire, just to close off, and I think you've answered this in a number of ways through the conversation, but what drives you? What kind of keeps you motivated to do something great and kind of take on these new roles and challenge yourself and become the global head of analytics for gaming at Derivco? Because I think that's kind of almost the secret sauce to your success.
So I always say, at the heart of any organization, at the heart of anything I do, is people.
Yeah.
And I think what drives me consistently is the opportunity to enable as many people as possible. And so I think that has kept me going. Enable people in various ways, enable them to be able to understand data better, to be able to make the business decisions, and enable the business to make those decisions through the people and helping the people to understand the data, and enable individuals to grow as well. So for me, it has always been a drive to get to those roles that enable me to enable others. And I think that is really, really key for me, is how do I consistently make sure that in order for myself to do something great, the best legacy I can leave behind is allowing others to grow. And I think that is really, really key for me, in enabling me to focus on where I need to focus, and drive myself to find the solutions that are going to enable those opportunities for individuals. So that is ultimately my drive and my purpose.
All right, folks. I think you've actually just heard the true definition of great leadership right there from Claire. Surround yourself with great people and let them kind of be the factor of your success rather than you kind of taking everything. Claire, thank you so much for joining me. Always great speaking to you. Absolutely love it. Your passion and everything just shines through. And I think, yeah, certainly has sent a spark for my day as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Craig. And thanks for the opportunity.
No, absolutely. And we'll catch up soon.
Take care.
All right. Thanks, Claire.